Let's get to our top 3 players at each position. And Jamey, who are the top 3 quarterbacks this week?
Top 3 quarterbacks for this week are the great Aaron Rodgers would be number 1 with his matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. Jackson Dart is a long-term play, not a short-term play, because I don't like him this week against the Denver Broncos. But after that, he gets the Eagles again, who he just scored 25 fantasy points against, the 49ers, which we know the defense is very depleted, and then the Bears. So that 3-game stretch, you'll want to have Jackson Dart as a potential starter, especially we know week 8 with all the bye weeks. And after Dart, it's Bryce Young. Adam, I said this to you yesterday that you're 1 for 2 so far. You're batting 500 against Bryce Young with his 3-game stretch that you called Dolphins, Cowboys, now Jets. So we'll see if you're above 500 or below 500 as Bryce Young on the Jets. Matchup of this 3-game magical stretch that you talked about.
Yeah, there is no matchup that's even in the ballpark of the Dallas Cowboys. And he only threw 25 passes. I mean, they're running the ball so well that he's not throwing that much. 25 pass attempts in a shootout against the Cowboys. He still turned it into 24.5 points. But yeah, the Jets are kind of interesting. They've only given up 20 or more fantasy points to 2 quarterbacks this year. So take that.
But they've been kind of living at that 20-point threshold, though.
Yeah. But that's Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, Tua, and Bo Nix didn't score 20 fantasy points. So is Bryce Young going to do that? Aaron Rodgers and Dak Prescott had huge games against them. Where is he in your top 15 this week, Bryce?
No.
Okay. All right. So it's not like last week where we were. There was some enthusiasm for him. All right. Running back, Dave, top 3 running backs.
Vidal's number 1, Knight is number 2, Tyjae Spears is number 3. All 3 of them are available in at least 40% of CBS Sports leagues. Bam Knight is at 88%. So even in your deep league, he's going to be available.
Sure. What do you think the chances are of Tyjae Spears leading the Titans in carries going forward, Dave?
I don't love his chances of doing that as long as Pollard stays healthy, but it wouldn't surprise me if there were some games where it's close, where it's like 12 for Pollard, 8 for Spears. But Spears can make up for it a little bit in the passing game.
Someone in the chat asked, and this is a little off subject, but are we expecting Aaron Jones? Just to give an update on that, he has to miss 1 more game. This week will be his 4th on IR, and then hopefully back after that in week 8. Wide receiver, Jamey, who are our top wide receivers?
Buckle up. I have Kayshon Boutte at the top, just coming off the game that he had, and again the fact that he plays the most snaps of the Patriots receivers. Drake May's playing well. Hopefully, it's something that could be sustainable. Josh Downs, back-to-back games with at least 6 catches and getting more involved. So we'll see if there's something that happens there with him moving forward. Obviously, with what Tyler Warren does and what Michael Pittman has done, it's hard to expect consistent performances from Josh Downs, but at least the last 2 weeks have been encouraging. And this could be a little bit of a difficult game for Warren. You're not benching him, but as Heath alluded to last week with Darren Waller, like the Chargers just great against tight ends. So it could be a little tough for Warren to be at the same level of production, and maybe we see a little bit more for Downs. And then I just hoping, I've said this now since draft season. I've said this now for the last couple of weeks when he was eligible to return, that I think Jalen Coker is going to make an impact. I'm hoping he make an impact. We know the schedule is favorable, at least for this week. He seems like he's going to be eligible to return. So for me, I'm going to avoid a lot of the replacement options and kind of hope that Coker plays this week and start him over the best non-Mike Evans Tampa Bay receiver, assuming Ibuka's out as well, the best non-Marvin Harrison Cardinals receiver, like all that mess. I hope Coker plays.
Right, because we see it a lot. Like McMillan could have a bad week this week against the Jets.
Yep.
But the other guy, hopefully it's Coker, could do well. It's a lot to ask a guy first game of the season. But, Dave, when I look at wide receiver, I'm really circling that Lions-Bucks game. The total is 52.5.
Yes.
It's in Detroit.
Yes.
You could see so much potential for Baker Mayfield to be throwing a lot.
But who is it, though?
It's tough.
That's the thing. It's like, who is it?
Well, what do you guys think?
I have Cameron Johnson first,
yeah,
and then Shepard second, and then Tez Johnson third. And you flip that, and I'd be like, yeah, cool, sure. That's exactly what it'll be. Like, there's no rhyme or reason to it. Cameron Johnson had more targets than Tez Johnson. They both had big plays. They're both fast. They're both going to be on the field potentially a lot. I think as we discussed this yesterday, Adam, like if you're talking about give me Tampa Bay best pass catcher, non-Evans, non-Godwin, non-Ibuka, I'd rather have Otten and just, forget about the receivers.
That's not a bad call. Here's what I like best about this matchup. The Lions secondary is banged up. Brian Branch might not play. And I don't think Tampa's going to be able to run the ball very well because not a lot of people can run the ball very well against Detroit. So they're going to have to take to the air. Tez is my favorite of the three. He's the fastest of the three. He had an 84% route rate to lead the Bucs last week. Obviously, it might not have been as high if Emeka Ibuka had played the whole game. Ibuka probably would have had the highest route rate. But Tez is going to be my favorite of the three. And he is one of the three receivers that I would look at. He's probably going to be third on my list. And then I would have Shepard second, and I would have Cam Johnson third. But I feel the exact same way you do, Jamie. If you've got him listed the opposite way, we're just taking shots. And it's because of Baker, how well he's played, and where the matchup is favorable for the Bucs this week against the depleted Lions secondary.
Right. I didn't even mention that. Terry and Arnold's going to be out, I would think, and Brian Branch is suspended. He can appeal his suspension.
Kirby Joseph is banged up, and DJ Reed's been on the shelf for a while. Like, this is a tough spot for the Lions to even try and, run with some of these fast receivers that the Bucs have. Here's the other wrinkle. If Mike Evans plays, he's going to take one of the Johnsons off the field. Which one is it going to be? Is it going to be Cam or is it going to be Tez? That's going to be a question that we're going to have to answer later in the week. But it's another reason why you shouldn't spend a bunch of fab or make your priority one of those Bucs receivers.
It's also, you got to assume not a full or typical Mike Evans probably snap count, coming back from a hamstring injury. They know what they're looking at from their season. Like, do they want to risk him getting hurt again, especially with Godwin maybe out for a majority of the season, how this is sounding, and who knows how long Ibuka is going to be out. So they may be a little bit cautious with Evans. So it could work out where we get the fooled you of, the best of Mike Evans. You're still starting him, obviously, if he plays. But, we may not get typical snap share for him, and then one of these guys steps up and has a big game.
Man, could you imagine if both teams were fully healthy offense? Well, the Lions are, but if the Bucs were fully healthy offensively, the shootout we would have would be so good for fantasy.
We might be getting the shootout anyway.
You might be.
I still may make, and this is nerve-wracking, but the matchup is, I still may make Baker Mayfield start of the week.
You should make Jamison Williams the start of the week.
Yeah.
He should have a big game,
Should.
Oh, hopeful. There's some encouraging trends for Jamison Williams we'll get to later in the week. All right, who's getting tight ends? Dave, top 3 tight ends.
Harold Fannin, you're back in our lives, and you're the number 1 tight end to claim off of waivers, and I don't necessarily feel great about the other names on this list. There's Mason Taylor. There's Michael Mayer. That's probably the top 3, but you can make the case for Evan Ingram. You can make the case for Oronde Gadsden. You can make the case. Well, Cade Otton should actually be on this list. Let me start over. Fannin 1, Otton 2, Taylor 3. Let's just end it there. Those are your top 3.
Okay, and you did mention Mayer, and he's been good. Gadsden had a good game without Quinn.
Mayer is a 1-week rental for sure, and Otton to a degree is as well, because we know that eventually they'll get healthy in Tampa. We know eventually Brock Bowers will be back. The Raiders, I believe, are one of the teams that's on bye in week 8. So you've only got 1 week of Mayer against Kansas City.
Right. Kansas City's been a pretty tough matchup, but also I think Harold Fannin is potentially a 1-week rental.
It's possible. Yeah, these are all potentially 1-week rentals.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is a good, call it blockbuster. A lot of good
There you go.
Good rentals. I need to throw one more name in the wide receiver mix just because he's available in a decent amount of leagues and he's available in a lot of leagues on the other sites. Kendrick Bourne. How are we feeling about him? Because Kittle coming back potentially, maybe Pearsall. Jennings is so beat up right now. He's like the operation guy. He's got a lot of things going on right now. Jamie, if Kendrick Bourne were out there, where would he rank on the waiver wire?
So I put guys like this that are rostered basically in like the 80 to 66% range in the check to see if they're available in shallow leagues. What I said about Kendrick Bourne, if he's available, he's the number 1 receiver to get.
Yes.
So still based on everything you said, Kittle back, Pearsall look likely back, Jennings may still play. I still think you're looking at him better than all of the rest of these guys, just given the uncertainty about all of them. So it may not have as much upside, let's say, as the Tampa Bay guys if everybody's there. And look, the quarterback change may hurt Bourne because Mac Jones has just been feeding him. So we'll see how that goes. But I think just as we sit here right now, Mac Jones expected to start, and Bourne has just been fantastic the last 2 weeks.
Okay. Sporn is 68% rostered. And now it's time for a coverage you can count on, sponsored by Nationwide. Jamey, give me a DST to stream this week.
The best DST I have for this week would be the Chiefs. They get the Raiders. They're 47% rostered. We know Geno Smith has been a turnover machine. He's got, I believe, 7 interceptions in his last 3 games, or 6 interceptions last 3 games. Like, he's just turned the ball over at such an unbelievable rate. And going into Arrowhead, I think it's going to be a nightmare for him. So Chiefs DST should be rostered and started across the board.
Any other DSTs you're like, this is not a great week, I feel like, for DSTs.
Seahawks are still available in 36% of leagues, and the Vikings coming off their bye. I know they're playing the Eagles, but it's not the same version of the Eagles. So Vikings DST still worth starting this week.
Okay. Yeah, and the Seahawks have been really good in 5 of 6 weeks so far. Houston, that's a winnable matchup for the Seahawks DST.
Yep.
And that was coverage you can count on, sponsored by Nationwide. Kickers to stream, Jamey?
Kickers to stream this week would be Chris Boswell. What should be a good matchup for him against Cincinnati. Jason Myers just continues to play well at home. And Josh Carty, I know we had a little concern last week about the weather. Hopefully no issues in London. I don't think so. So you can go back to Carty this week.
All right, good stuff.